Welcome to the Business Awareness Hour with Lisa and the Music Man. Live from Studio C, here at Media Stations in Bohemia, New York.
And good evening, everybody, and Happy New Year to everyone out there. And my name is Norman. I'm also known as the Music Man. And the lovely Lisa Rodino is my co-host. Hello, Lisa.
Hello, Norman. How you doing?
All right, great. How was your holidays?
Well, we've
You
been
were all over
on
the
the
place.
road. I was. We started down in Charlotte, North Carolina, and continued on to Florida for a few weeks, and then headed back to North Carolina and then home. So it was really great to get some warmer weather.
How'd you make out during Christmas? You get some nice Christmas gifts?
We don't celebrate
Well,
Christmas, Norman.
holiday gifts. Okay.
No holiday gifts. We just enjoy the family time that we get together with.
That's good. How are the
And
kids?
how about you?
Fine. It's just, keeping everybody busy and happy. And yes, we give
Good.
gifts. And,
Mhm.
when you have 7 grandchildren, it does accumulate. That just getting one gift is not sufficient enough,
Uh,
But, as
yeah,
they get older, they don't want gifts. They just want cash,
that's right.
cash or debit
Yeah,
cards or credit cards or whatever it may be.
yeah.
Someone that is going to answer some questions about gifts during the course
Mhm.
of the evening is our guest, whose name is Marty Christ. And he is
Mhm.
the owner of Tax Simplicity. And he is based out of, if I'm not mistaken, Marty, out of Maryland.
Yes, Bel Air,
Awesome.
Maryland, near Baltimore.
Well, welcome to
Near
the Business
Baltimore.
Awareness Hour. And the purpose of why you're here tonight is let people know who you are and how they can get in touch with you. So without further ado, tell us a little bit about how and why you got into the accounting profession.
Well, I went to I went to school, to college. I was going to be the next great lawyer, the next great litigator, and I could name names, but the way things are sometimes, I might sound political because I might be a lawyer for one side or the other. But the
Right.
more I found out about law, the less I liked it because it was like, well, you have to represent everybody. Everybody deserves their representation, and it doesn't matter if they're right or wrong. And I consider myself kind of a moral person. I like structure, and so besides taking political science, I ended up taking accounting classes, and that led me to a master's degree in accounting and a CPA. And taxes. I can't say that I like the tax system, but I like doing taxes because there's a lot of structure and order, and it appeals to me. It's numbers. There's for the most part right and wrong, and the little bit of gray, can be dealt with.
Approximately how
Oh,
many clients do you, I mean, I'm going on from being with people that are also tax accountants and CPAs and have a rough idea of how many clients they have and what have you. How about how many clients do you have?
Well, right now we've got about 400 clients,
Oh, that's right.
cool.
and
Now,
and
when you say we, you have a staff and you have a whole team of folks working with you?
well, I've got actually a couple of contractors that work with me. And
Okay.
and part of this is that I have done taxes for 40 years, and
Okay.
it's always been what I would call a little bit of a hobby tax practice. Um, and so I really it was never my main business. And so now I'm in the course of transitioning it to being my main business. And
Ah,
so what I hope to do through events like this and wonderful people like Lisa and the Music Man is to appeal to thousands of people, possibly tens of thousands of people. And so I have to be ready for that. And so that's why we are is we are ready for an onslaught of new clients.
So,
very nice.
so for when do you go on vacation? We know when you start, but roughly when does it? I mean, I know different accountants go at different times of the year. I know my accountant, he disappears within probably a week after the last tax return gets done and, disappears for a month or so and then comes back home. What about yourself?
Summertime is cruising time.
Ah, yes, my
And
favorite.
Ah,
then in the fall is another time for vacations. Um, the crazy thing is that I'm still doing tax returns for 2022. This is something that's never happened before. Is I've never seen so many people. I mean, it's not that I couldn't get them done, but it's people just have been so crazy with, I mean, COVID things and things in the world that I still have people, probably 14 people who have not given me their documents for last
Well,
year.
what is wrong with these people?
Well,
Now, are these business owners or just private individuals? First question.
It is in this group, it is 2/3 business owners and 1/3 strictly individuals. And the part that's really that saddens me is that they're all people who normally get refunds. And so that money is just sitting there on the table waiting for them to reach out and
Take
snatch
it.
it. That's right.
Is there,
Yeah.
I guess you don't know personally, but are there personal reasons why that they just can't get their work together, or why do they wait to the last minute? I mean, I can say personally that if I know there's something that I'm going to deduct or something that I need to address, it goes automatically into a tax file. And then I build up that tax file and I hand it to my accountant. We go over it and bingo, then we're done.
Well, Norman, all I can say is that, you're a tax guy's dream. No offense to my wife, but, there are, I mean, in some of these cases, the refunds involved, might go anywhere from, $400 to $10,000. But we have to remember that to every person, the importance of that amount of money, varies.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's probably where, one of the things that's, the thing that keeps this job interesting for me is the people and trying to help them.
So, do you have any interesting stories that you'd like to share about former clients or clients in general?
No names.
Norman, I was going to violate every ethical standard and name names.
Oh, I've heard rumors.
Yes, well, I mean, they're all true. So, I guess the craziest thing was that last year I fired a client, and I had never done that before. I mean, there's some clients who were like, difficult or whatever, and I told them that that I'd prefer that they find another tax preparer. But I finally had to fire him, and he was a small business owner. He had been my client for 5 years, and every year he would send me his income statement, and I would do his taxes and send him what he owed, and he would pay. And then last year, after he gets the first answer, he writes back and says, "Well, I think I overlooked some of my expenses." And what he had done was there were only 5 line items of expenses, and all of them he had added either $1,000, $2,000, or $3,000 to. And so, and of course he's done this all in writing. So let's leave a trail, and let's make it pretty easy for even an IRS agent to determine that these numbers are made up.
Even.
So I sent it. So at this point in time, he was probably out the door, but I called him and he said he was too busy to talk. Just send him the answer. So I sent him the answer, and he writes back, and then he says, "Well, what number? How much my expenses have to be so that I owed $3,000 in taxes?" So now he's fired. I just didn't tell him yet.
Yeah.
Because I'm curious. I have cats, and there's a little bit of cat in me, and so I like to play, a little bit. So I answered his question, and then he writes back and gives me a new set of numbers, again incremented in the even thousands, that now has him owing $300 on $500,000 of revenue. And then I wrote him back and said, "You're fired." Then my phone rang, and he said, "Well, what's the matter?" I said, "You don't want to just cheat on your own taxes, but you want to drag my whole business down with you?"
Yeah, you can't sign those papers.
No.
No. I mean, and this is, and I guess to transition from the story to a useful point is that a tax preparer is not obligated to audit or verify your taxes. You provide the information. We, make sure that they're handled in the proper way to get you the best outcome. And what I tell people is, and this would be the exception of signing a return like the one I just talked about, that if they want to monkey around with their taxes, I'll get out of jail before they do. Because
Well,
because they are their taxes, not mine.
Right.
But but my standard of care is reasonableness. And so if I see something that's unreasonable and I proceed with it, then I endanger my license. And the worst part is that if I get caught up in a bad return, when you do taxes, you have to register with the IRS. And so I have the equivalent of a Social Security number as a tax preparer. And that number goes on every return I file. And the IRS could very easily call up, the hundreds of returns from a year, the thousands of return over the year, and audit them all.
mm-hmm.
And that's not something that I need to do to any of my clients.
Now, that's your favorite part of, I'll use the word tax preparation, is not just the preparation part, but arguing and winning with the IRS, correct?
Well, no, I mean, I prefer to not have to argue with the IRS, but I do have a very good track record. People say to me, well, do your people ever get audited? Well, of course they do. The question is, do they win or do they lose? And what is winning and losing? Losing in an audit is being caught doing something you shouldn't have. And I have, with the exception of, people like sometimes who, they'll get a letter. It's not an audit letter. The IRS will say, well, you left out some piece of income. And they'll call me and ask about the letter. And I'll say, well, did you get, did you put some investments in some new brokerage last year? And they're like, well, yeah. And I go, well, get the statement. And if it turns out the IRS is right, we do an amended return and we move on. But for the most part, when the IRS, a lot of times they'll come back and say, well, this looks unusual, or we'd like this explained, or we'd like this documented. We explain it, we document it. And, more than 95% of the time, my clients, get an IRS letter and settle it without payment.
Do you also have a bookkeeping service that tags along with your tax preparation?
No, I know a lot of excellent bookkeepers. It's really a different discipline.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like kind of I work like a fiend, normally 4 months of the year. And then I have other things that I do, including enjoy my life the rest of the year. And bookkeeping is a 9 to 5, happens 12 times a year. It's all repetitive. And I look at tax returns as much more project oriented, and maybe I just have a short attention span.
Are you looking?
So,
go ahead, Lisa.
oh, I was going to ask. So where do you provide your services? Are you limited to Maryland, or are you able to do nationwide?
I do nationwide. Last year, I filed tax returns in 28 states, and I had clients in 32 states. And that's because 4 of them live in states where they don't pay income taxes, state income taxes.
Ah,
And so, yes, I am a bit old fashioned in that the people that are local are used to in-home service. I mean, this doctor makes house calls.
interesting.
And the funny thing about that is people are like, well, why don't you have an office and a staff? And it's like, so I'll tell you one of the secrets about doing taxes that none of the other preparers will be happy for me to share. And that is that the average return, the second time you do it, can be done in less than an hour. So I roll in, the people have their documents. They don't have to fill out one of these, like a lot of firms, like big firms, they use organizers. And so people gather up all their documents. They transcribe information from those documents onto these organizers. They send it all in where a data entry clerk keys all of it in, and it goes through several levels of review. And it's all silliness. The fact is that if you get a document, they're going to use the document. They're not going to use the numbers you transcribe into an organizer. And if you don't get a document, like charitable contributions, they don't they don't need to see that you gave $10 here and $20 there and $30 somewhere else. Just tell them my charitable contributions were, $1,890. And one of the things the IRS allows is what I call the magic word. No offense, Music Man. I wanted to call you Magic Man just for a minute.
Just
But
for the hell of
but
it.
the magic word on the tax return is various. So when you get to charitable contributions, you write various $1,890.
Right.
Next.
Interesting.
So I can roll in. I don't even ask people to sort the documents. Just put them in a stack. I put them on my right hand. I enter them, and as I do each one, I mark it with my initial. Put it on the left, and in half an hour, 40 minutes, I'm done. And while I'm doing it, we're having a conversation. And I know that somewhere in this, and I'm going to jump right into shameless self-promotion here.
Please do. That's why you're here.
So one of the things that makes me sad in the things I see on social media and advertising now is people talking about tax planning and tax advisory. And they're making it into this like huge business, and you want to pay thousands of dollars to get tax advice. And here's how stupid I am. Is that when I do your taxes for last year, I will talk to you about your taxes for next year.
Oh, so you're already giving the advice when you're having that sit down with them.
And this is where the other thing is, there's a lot of companies, whether it's, well, we'll just say there's a lot of tax preparation services with lots of guarantees. And the biggest one is they guarantee the maximum refund.
That doesn't mean anything.
Well, it doesn't mean anything for a couple of reasons. First of all, is most of them, because they don't know you and they don't know your situation. Even if it's somebody that's done your taxes for 10 years, if you just drop your stuff off or mail it in and they mail it back, they don't know you. They don't have any idea if you have left something out. They're not in a position to say whether or not you've taken advantage of every opportunity. And so one of the things about the design of tax simplicity is that there are no clerks. There's no data entry. There are only going to be professionals. And those professionals will be, so if you have us do a return, you will have your assigned professional, and that is their job from start to finish. And they will get to know you. And I've actually shot a couple of videos that will be on the internet soon. And in one of them, I say, we don't want to do your taxes this year. We want to do them forever.
Cute.
Very nice. So what's the difference between doing your taxes with you and a parking meter? I think you've already answered that in a whole lot of ways, right?
Well. So this is one of, for some of us who are a little older, people like Henny Youngman and Jack Benny.
Many people don't know who Henny Youngman is. You need to explain that.
Right. But we'll just call him the king of the one-liners. And so I say, look, I'm not a parking meter. You don't have to put a quarter in me to watch me work. And so the reason that I tell people that I'm not a parking meter is that if somebody has a tax question, they can call me and I'll answer it. And I won't even charge them for the time.
Well, what I'm going to do for you right now is let people know how to get in touch with you. So if someone likes what they're hearing so far, how do they get in touch with you, Marty?
Well, the easiest way, because I'm old-fashioned, is the telephone. I'm most responsive to the phone, and that number is 443-216-9746. And should I say that again?
Well, say it two more times.
One more time.
443-216-9746. And I am most responsive to phone calls. Second is text. Emails is a good way to find out that I'm caught up on emails after tax season.
Oh, no. Okay. So best to either call or text, Marty.
So
pay attention to that.
Now, there is actually a contact page on taxsimplicity.net, which is the website. And we'll probably get to that. But if you fill out that contact page, that gets a special highlight in the inbox. And so those during tax season are checked every day.
When you talk about the telephone, like we just right now had best way to get in touch with you during tax season, do you have hours where you can reach me between 9 and 7, or when do you cut off for the day?
Well, my hours during tax season start more at 7 and go to 10,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not 10 a.m.
Right.
Um, I think that, taxes are a stressful enough time that, you know, not that people want a friend, but I would like them to see me as a friend type person, as and so this is why. So here am I tonight. I'm not in a suit and a shirt and a tie. Although I have a couple, maybe more than a couple, but I want to be like, kind of like the everyman of tax preparation.
Speaking
And
about,
so I make myself available. And so, one of the things about the tax business, I'm sorry I interrupted you there, is I was just thinking about the fact that most of my calls come in the evenings and weekends. That's because people are at
our
work.
home, right?
And so um, a lot of times when I lived in Florida during tax season, I would be playing golf during the day and be working at night and on the weekends.
People must have thought that was very strange.
Well, they most of them think I'm very strange.
I'm not touching
Uh,
that one at all. But
Right. Well, no,
what
no,
I will
the
touch
only,
is
the only problem is that I revel in it.
you revel in strange. Is that what you're
Yes,
telling us?
yes, yes,
Okay.
yes.
do you
No, I mean, look,
revel in tax reform? Tell us a little bit what's going on with regarding tax reform for this year. Anything?
well, the good news for this year is that um, if things went well for you last year, they should go well for you this year. The big thing that was coming this year, that was supposed to come a year ago, was the $600 reporting threshold for the 1099-K form. So if you have some little side hustle, or sadly, even if your friends are paying, like reimbursing you for dinner or the show through Venmo or PayPal, if you received more than $600 in payments, then they were supposed to report that to the government, and you were going to have to deal with that on your taxes. Now, the IRS had put together a way that if you weren't actually in business and these were just personal things, there was like a way to report that, but you were going to have to report it. Now, the interesting thing there is that the IRS a year ago said, well, this is going to be too complicated. We're not going to enforce it this year. So in December, they said the same thing again. But in Maryland, the state of Maryland requires these vendors to comply with the $600 reporting threshold, even though the IRS doesn't. And this is where you get into, the tax law is not put together by accountants. Tax law is put together by lawyers who are politicians who have an agenda, and
Correct.
none of it has to make any sense. It has to make any sense at all. And so I didn't understand how the IRS could choose not to enforce a federal law. And then I was doubly surprised to discover that states like Maryland could say, you know what, the IRS says they're not enforcing it, but we are.
Well, any state can go and do that because they govern themselves.
Right. But I guess that if Congress passes a law and the IRS says no, we're not enforcing it, I didn't actually think that a state could override that. But anyway, I'm sorry, I'm off the topic here.
No, that's what
And
kind
that
of
was
like.
and that was that's all about what are the changes. And the good news is that I would consider, that for 99.92% of the people, the only changes are that the brackets have changed a little bit. So, and, so you can make a little bit more money that's taxed at 10% or 15%, as it doesn't shift into a higher rate as quickly as it did before. But for the most part, I mean, the standard deduction went up a little bit, but there's nothing structural. There was a big change last year to the earned income credit, where in 2021, you could get the earned income credit without having a qualifying child. In 2022, no child, no earned income credit. That was a major change. I'm not aware of any changes of that magnitude in this year's taxes. And so it should be an easier season.
I have a question for you. Well, that's why we're here. Ha ha. That
Norman, you're so.
I want to be like Marty. You know, I got to practice when I'm on stage. Question for you. When people come to your office, let's say a married couple, do you ever advise a married couple to file separately?
Yes. Yes. And so
What
one of
constitutes when they should do that and when they shouldn't?
well, the numbers, Norm.
Okay, that's what I want to hear.
So, and so, but so again, why, to go back to the question of why me or why us and not somebody else, is that, and I think my easiest example is all the online self-preparation that people do, is they ask, like, the people are asked a few questions, and then the system tells them, well, it looks like you should file jointly or you should file separately. And then they do their taxes. The way we do the taxes, we do the whole return as
Right.
a joint return. And then with one click of a button, we get a report that says married versus separate or joint versus separate. And it says that if you're joint, let's say your refund is $10,000. And if you're separate, this one pays 1,000, but this one gets 20,000 back. And then in the last column, and then at the very bottom, it says this couple should file separately because it increases their refund $8,000. Or, this couple should file jointly because their refund is better by $2,000. And so we make that decision at the end rather than the beginning. And so rather than basing that decision on theory or experience, we base it on the numbers.
So you have software that's already pre-set up. You can run everything as a married couple and then see both sides of the screen, you could say,
Yes.
to determine the best outcome.
Here's
Now, with the numbers, being irrelevant for a minute, is there anything else that would be a reason to not file jointly other than the numbers, or just would it be numbers related? Is there something more?
Well, there are situations where because let's say that you are getting married to someone who has historical tax problems, and so by filing separately, that partner can essentially be isolated with their historical problems, and they don't become the other partner's problems.
Gotcha.
So that would be, but I guess that I probably see that mostly with government employees, and I probably get one new case like that a year.
Gotcha. So it's kind of like when we tell people you don't want to co-sign on a loan with your children or somebody else because you're going up the creek if they don't make the payments. You go
Yeah.
with them.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
you can get pretty wet in that creek.
What's that?
You can get pretty wet in that creek, let me tell you.
That's for sure.
You could drown. I mean, you could drown in that.
You could drown in that. That's pretty creekish. Yeah.
But I guess the one thing that I share is sometimes people get married and they don't, and let's say that you've got one partner that's a little dominant, and the other partner doesn't really get involved in the taxes, and let's say that a problem comes up. Well, there is something called, and so at that point in time that a problem comes up, what is considered the injured spouse, if they can meet the conditions of what is called an innocent spouse, they can separate themselves from the tax liability, and then they would essentially be on a road where they would be filing married separate forever.
So when there's a bad actor in the union, you can separate yourself from him or her.
Usually, if meeting the conditions isn't always easy.
Right. Okay.
When this time of year, like when we're in football season, we're winding down football season and Super Bowl's coming up. Super Bowl comes up, people pay all kinds of millions of dollars to get 2 seconds of time to do a commercial. This is also the time where tax preparers, the large corporation type of tax preparers also do advertising. What are the keywords that you should hear and listen to make sure that you stay away?
Well, I think that um, if you hear a tax preparer say, well, I have a strategy that that applies to a lot of people, and I assure you that it's completely ethical and legal. This goes back to the same thing whenever somebody says, well, to tell you the truth, and then blah blah blah.
Why would you
When
lie?
somebody has to tell you that they're telling you the truth, you should worry.
Mm-hmm.
And the other, and so if I can talk about guarantees for a minute, let's talk about the things that tax firms guarantee. Um, and my beef with their guarantees is that they offer guarantees that are basically useless to 99% of their customers, because the only way a customer would find out that they didn't get the maximum refund is if they had somebody else
Prepare it.
replicate the tax preparation.
Mm-hmm.
And they would have to have somebody else replicate it who was at least as knowledgeable, if not more knowledgeable than the first people. And so when they say, oh, and the other thing, and this is very much, Maryland is an excellent example. It's not the only one. So when they changed the tax laws significantly in 2018, the state of Maryland said, we're going to have to change the way we do our state taxes to follow that, or else people are going to end up paying a lot more in state taxes than they should. And then a funny thing, they thought about what they just said, and then they didn't change the Maryland tax law.
They wanted to collect more.
So this is, and so this is, people grab a cup of coffee. This is going to get a little dry, but I'll try to keep it under 2 minutes. So there are situations where you may have your itemized deductions may be less than the standard deduction. Let's say you're a couple and your standard is $27,000 and you have $25,000 in itemized deductions. And so you're like, well, all these firms that say we guarantee the maximum federal refund will tell you to take the standard deduction and get the most money. But in the state of Maryland, Maryland says, well, if you itemize or if you take the standard, you have to do the same for the state. You can't apply one method here and one method there. Well, it so happens that for most couples in this situation that I gave you, if they forced itemization and paid more to the federal, maybe $600 or $800 more to the federal, they oftentimes can get $2,000 more back from the state and end up $1,200 ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is something that I have never heard any firm say, that we guarantee the maximum total refund. And so because most people wouldn't notice a difference, because it would never occur to them that the maximum federal refund wouldn't be part of getting the maximum total refund.
A few moments back, you were talking about the client that you fired, and you fired the client because of deductions.
Yes.
When is the right time to decide on what deductions you're going to use, or should I use any deductions, standard deductions? Do I need to itemize? As the planner, as the tax person, professional, what do you recommend?
Well, Norman, that's a fantastic question. I'll tell you why. Is that you have done what almost every one of my clients does, is you have just commingled standard deductions with business deductions, and they are unrelated. So if you
I needed to give you something to chat about, so I figured I would say something like that.
What, Norman, what have I done so far to indicate that I don't have 10 million things to say?
Nothing whatsoever.
But this is a very good point, because if you are in business, if you spend money on your business, you should deduct it. All of it.
Mm-hmm.
Period. If you have a year where you spent more on your business than your business brought you in, claim it all. You spent the money, you deserve whatever break there is. Now, you will get, you take your business income and subtract your business deductions, and that gives you like your taxable, your adjusted gross income. Then you apply the standard deduction. So if you are in small business, you get to deduct all your expenses, and then you get the standard deduction, or and itemized is personal deductions. And that basically has 4 components. And that is state and local taxes, which includes property taxes, mortgage interest, charity, and medical. Those are the 4 pieces that go into itemized, and those are all personal expenses. None of them are business expenses. Mm-hmm. Business expenses, I would say, go what I call above the line, and itemized expenses go below the line.
Well, what we're going to do right now, and those are really, really good points that people should really take heed of. But we're going to have to use some of our expense money in the commercials that we have coming up, or we're going to have a problem for next year. So stay tuned, everybody. We'll be right back. Give us 2 to 3 minutes. Thank you.
My name is Lisa Rodino. I am a commercial loan advisor and broker. Have you been finding that your business's cash flow is not where you need it to be? Have you found yourself taking from your personal accounts to meet your business's obligations? Have you found that those quick solutions of quick money are starting to get awfully expensive? My job is to find the right funding products for my clients so they can get back to working in their business and give me the task of finding the best options for their situation. Give us a call today to learn more. 516-268-0350.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Friend Entertainment USA. My name is Norman Wasserman. I am also known as the Music Man. Let me just tell you a little bit about Friend Entertainment. We put on concerts for charities, and we do that everywhere from New York to Las Vegas. We do R&B, Motown, rock and roll, jazz, whatever it is that you wish. Friend Entertainment will deliver the best of the best for you and your charity. Here are some of the names of the talent that have performed with us on our stage. Stevie Wonder, Tina Turner, The Temptations, Earth, Wind and Fire, the one and only ELO, Elton John himself, Kool and the Gang, and the fabulous Donna Summer. Go to our website, friendentusa.com. That's www.friendentusa.com, or feel free to call us at 631-698-9696. 631-698-9696, and we'll see you at the next show. Okay, welcome back, everybody, to the Business Awareness Hour with our guest, Chris Christ. I love that. That is so stagey. It's like I got to think of something for myself. You know, Norman, I don't know what I would think.
Well, you've got the Music Man. What are you saying?
Yeah, but that's not as
we
catchy
got Marty
as...
Christ.
No, that's
a good name.
You know, Marty Christ is, it's like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
When someone wants to do tax planning, is it a good idea for them to have to pay more for it, or to do it separately? What would you suggest?
So I include tax planning as part of tax preparation. I think they're one and the same. And part of what I see a lot now is people are talking about tax planning, and what they're really doing is if I'm going to help you plan for your taxes. So one thing I might say is, well, let's say you're a small business owner and you're contributing to a traditional or a Roth IRA account, when you could have a SEP IRA that has, you know, a cap instead of $6,000 or $7,000 of $54,000, or you could create a solo 401k plan, or you could, have what's called a cash balance pension plan for yourself. You could take but all these things require, first of all, that you have a business that makes money. The second thing is that all of those things are executed by financial advisors, not tax advisors. And so a lot of what, and so the ideas come from your tax advice, but the execution comes from a financial plan or a financial advisor. And this is where I just think that it's wrong. I think it's just wrong for the people who say, "Oh, well, we're going to do tax planning and charge you $9,000 or $10,000." No, that's. I mean, the ideas, I mean, can be developed in an hour or 2 hour conversation, and it's just it makes me angry.
So I'm curious, when you are, doing the planning, you recommend they go to a financial planner. You're not able to provide them that service, correct?
Well, I'm in the unique situations. That is my other job, is I am a financial advisor, although that's not why I'm here. But
Okay.
I'm one of the few tax preparers who is themselves an advisor, and I work for one of the major national firms, one of the only ones that will let me do both jobs. And I can tell you that I have a special 1 page letter, 2 paragraphs, plain English, that somebody has to sign when they do both jobs with me, because under federal law, a financial advisor cannot give tax or legal advice. Now, this would be another case of stupidity coming out of Congress, because if a financial advisor says to you, "Hey, you need to do a solo 401k plan to save money and defer taxes," well, they have just given tax advice. The fact that they
Right.
say we need to confirm this with your tax advisor is just a way to make sure that 2 people make money and not just one.
Interesting.
It's pathetic.
Yes. So for those young couples out there, the newlyweds, that it's their first year of marriage, how would you suggest they do their personal taxes? Do you bring them all together? How do you go through that versus somebody that's been around a while?
Well, so let me tell you one other little secret about taxes, and that is that half of the people that I do taxes for could do their own taxes, and they choose not to because I do it so quickly and because they don't want the stress. I have had over the years, the 2 main reasons I've lost clients in the past has been marriage and self-preparation. So you have two people who have their own tax preparers, and they get married, and only one tax preparer survives. That's just what
That makes
happens.
sense, right?
Yep.
But the second thing is that I have had a number of situations where I have done taxes a couple times for people who've got changed situations, and I'll be the first one to tell them, look, you could do this yourself if you want to, as long as nothing changes, and if you want, we'll, for like a reduced fee, I'll sit with you while you do your own taxes the first time, and then come back to me, when you need to, and this is where
They would need to as soon as they get done doing it the first time.
no, Norm, there's a lot of smart people out there, but I guess one of the things that I have in my favor is that I'm not 25. I'm not starting out in the tax business. I know where my next meal is coming from and who's paying for it, and so I'm liberated. Not being a public company, I'm not here to maximize revenue and profits. I do like to make money. Look, see my logo. See the green on this side over here.
No, I
That's
like
the
green
color of
also.
money.
Green is a good
Yeah.
color.
That's the color of money. But
Yes, it is.
but I have found, and I think both of you are also aware of this, that, whether you call it, the law of attraction or how the universe balances itself. But I believe that, if you do good things are done unto you.
This is true.
And it's
And
proven.
I'll tell you that if you want a great referral source, is teach somebody to fish, and they will send their friends. So I can't say it's if I left the impression that my approach gave me no benefits, I would be lying. Is that I've found that taking care of people, they have taken care of me.
Nice. So what's the best way for anyone to send you a referral or give you a call to have your services?
Well, one thing that I've told them all is you can give my name and number out at will without contacting me first. If they would prefer to have me contact them, then call me with their information. But if they're comfortable with it, just give them my name and number. And if there's someone that you're not sure is good at follow through, have them call me while they're still with you.
So what's the
and
best number?
the best number, let's see if I can remember this, is 4.
Oh, you're a numbers guy. You should know this.
216 9746. That's 443 216 9746.
To the folks that are
Excellent.
out there listening to the show and you happen to be near a computer, I want you to get online and go to taxsimplicity.net. That's taxsimplicity.net. And I'm going to give you a few seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's make it 10.
This will be the easiest website they've ever had to browse because it only has 4 pages.
But they may have a problem spelling simplicity. So let's see. Okay, so now we're on there. We got the site. And what
Yep.
Lisa's going to do is Lisa's going to open this thing up.
Okay. So first thing we have is the tax services, services, what we do. And we have your personal tax services, which you mention here, versus corporate and partnership tax services, along with nonprofit returns and tax services. So you're working with the nonprofits as well.
Yes. No, if it has to be filed on a tax return, I help them, even estates and trusts. So numbers like 990 and 1041s, they might not be as common a friend as the 1040, but they are still old friends.
Okay.
I know a guy that can help those not-for-profits probably create some awareness and revenue for themselves.
Yeah, would that
Norman.
be
Just saying.
with the benefit concerts?
Something like that, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And now I see your pricing sheets, and you list your prices on
That's
your
cool.
website, which is remarkable.
Well, and I guess so. This is another thing, and I've been told, well, if you list your prices, you give them control. And I go, oh no, I don't. And I'll go back to my story about the guy that I fired.
Right.
The fact that I publish my prices, I am not required to take a tax return that I don't want to do. Now, the only reason I would ever not want to do a tax return is because I thought there was something wrong with it. And I just don't need that trouble. But no, so I put my prices there. I put what's included. And if you'll notice there, you'll see that federal, 2 states, multiple documents. So if you are a small business owner, you can have a Schedule C. You can also have a rental property, a Schedule E. It is still a personal return. It's not a business return.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're married with a partner, $375 to do your taxes that includes your small business is a value.
No, that's a really
That
good
is.
price.
Very good.
It's not
Okay.
just the price. It's we know now what's really involved in what you do, Mr. Christ. It's a
Right.
great price.
Right, but I believe it's a fair price to both sides, and here's why. I told you before that the second, and so you didn't ask me when I said, well, the second time I do a tax return, it rarely takes more than an hour. You didn't
Right.
ask me how long it takes the first time. Well, the first time it takes maybe 2 hours, but at $375 for 2 hours the first year and 1 hour in follow-on years, there are a lot of people that say that I'm overpaid. But the only reason they know that I'm overpaid is that I let them see how long it takes. And this is where we get into price versus value.
If somebody brings you a previous tax return and you review it, as you probably should, it's the right thing to go and do. Doesn't it shorten the amount of time on doing it for the first time?
A little bit. The time to do it the first time is typing in the name, the address,
Yeah,
the
right.
age, date of birth,
The bookkeeping.
bank account number, like who their employers are, what their business is. And so it's in the second year, it's all you do is type in the numbers. But I mean, but the one thing is, providing a prior year tax return is one of the things I require because I want to be able to compare last year's to this year's. And again, if you'll tolerate me for 1 minute on something that I think is subtle but important, a lot of people will look at last year to this year, and if something is the same, then they'll be like, oh well, that's got to be fine. No, it doesn't have to be fine. And so when you look at the final tax return, if it's the same, you have to ask, should it have been the same? If it's different, you should ask, should it have been different? And so there's actually 4 outcomes. And this is what you get by like a numbers geek who is also, God help me, an engineer, a computer engineer, which is why I was never invited for parties for a long time, because people were afraid of what would come out of my mouth should I dare open it.
Oh, no. And you do mention that you will do a free prior year review.
Yes.
So how many times do you find that the previous year's review generates additional funding or filings that aren't quite up to par to your standard?
3 out of 10. Well, I mean, I guess there's very few people who are doing really egregious things on their taxes. And I would say that in 3 cases out of 10, I'll find either refund that's left on the table or sadly taxes that were underpaid. Although most of the time where the taxes are underpaid, they've either gotten or will get a letter from the IRS. And if I could just say one other thing about the IRS is that they are, if they believe that you have underpaid your taxes, they are obligated to pursue that money. If they believe you've overpaid your taxes because they don't know it for certain, they are not obligated to tell you that there may be money on the table.
And if you find that money, you get it back for them with interest, correct?
Yes, the IRS pays interest. And actually, so I just used a word, and so I think one of you had asked me earlier about things to watch out for in advertising.
Yes.
And so some of the words that I consider like dangerous words is up to, may be as high as, and what that means is that, there's one person in 1,000 or one person in 10,000 that they're going to now talk to you about as an example. And the average person is not going to have that. It's just like all the companies that say, oh, we guarantee a result or we guarantee an outcome for you. But if we don't, then you don't have to pay.
Marty,
Well, so you're guaranteeing an outcome, or aren't you? And this is where sometimes I'm best kept in a dark, locked room.
Marty, have you ever done a tax return you wouldn't sign?
Well, I believe I fired the guy last year.
Okay,
I had done, yes. I mean, for the most part, if I realize that I don't want to do a return, I mean, no, it never escapes my computer. But
That's the way it should be.
It's been very, but this is where it's been very rare that's happened. I mean, I've found a lot more people who are missing tax benefits rather than cheating the government. And one of the biggest things was something we talked about earlier, where people think, well, since I'm getting like $27,000 in standard deduction, I don't have to take my business expenses. They don't understand that they're unrelated things.
That's true. But you have, they should understand that EIN versus the Social Security number, and those two are both separate filings.
Right. But remember that you can file as a sole proprietor without an EIN.
Yes.
You don't,
That's true.
and so that which would actually take me in a conversation about LLCs, what I'll call myths and truths. And I am not, and I know that we do not have time for that. That could go for its own hour.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because I work in the LLC and C Corp space, getting business business owners their personal and business credit separated so that we can build business credit and get them on their way. But I see we are running low on time, so we are not delving into that today.
There is so much more that we would really need to
Yeah.
go and discuss, but that'll make, I guess, for another
A
trip
part
to the
two.
microphones. Yeah, part two.
Yeah.
If you'd be willing to have me back, I might even come back during tax season.
Whoa.
And so if I can, one thing I wanted to say is for people to think of, well, 400 clients, how could he have time to do mine? Well, please remember that those 400 existing clients is 400 hours of work. And if you're working an 80 or 90 hour week,
That's 5 weeks.
it's
You know
only
what?
5 weeks.
I
And-
mentioned in the beginning of the show that it's such a great time for you to be on this show
Right.
or any show that would be like this, because you're presenting and people can get in touch with you. On the converse, if you were really serious about coming on and say the mid to end of March, beginning of April, for those that really need your help at that particular time, we could certainly have a conversation about it.
Right. No, and actually that might be something where, I'd be interested in even trying to do more of a call-in kind of thing. If that is something you ever do, where people, could ask questions.
I'm sure we can
But-
figure something out.
Is that there, the last couple of years, the number of people who extended their tax returns and did not file in April was unprecedented. I mean, I don't even have a final number, but it was 10 or 30 or 50 times more than it ever been in the past. And so tax season is no longer over in April.
Right. It's
That's
never
for sure.
over.
And for some people it's not even over in October.
This is
Well,
so true.
this show is over, but we want you to give off your phone number again a couple of times and let people know how to get in touch with you and create the awareness that you deserve.
Thank you. So it is 443-216-9746. That's 443-216-9746 and taxsimplicity.net.
So, Marty, we
Excellent.
thank you very, 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 very much on being on the show tonight and starting off the 2024 season for us with a bang, or with some cash or however green or however you want to go and say it. But we thank you very, very much for doing that. And let's chat about a call-in. That might be an interesting
Yeah.
situation. That might be good. So you
Yep.
just hang in there for us for a while we wish everybody again a happy new year, a happy and healthy new year, and let everybody be real positive with their lives and watch and help people. Helping people is really important. This
That's for
work.
sure.
I'm not going to get started at that.
Yeah.
That'll be for another show. But anyway,
Yes, it
thank you
will.
everybody, and we'll be back Thursday evening. So come back to us on Thursday evening, and we'll look forward to seeing you 7:00 sharp on the Business Awareness Hour. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
The Business Awareness Hour with Lisa and the Music Man is brought to you by Media Stations in Bohemia, New York. Create your own media and have your own station. That's Media Stations in Bohemia, New York. 516-448-2066 or visit media